Flooding, more than a foot of rain drenches the Carolinas, and the threat is not over yet.
Reports of 14 to 20 inches in 12 hours, so it's just more than any stormwater system can handle.
There's a big lunar show set for tonight. Are you ready to watch?
A partial lunar eclipse, and we're going to be watching for this eclipse beginning around 8:40 p.m.
Apple and pumpkin season arrive up north. Did this summer's weather cooperate?
It's really neat to come out and see how many apples we have on our trees this year.
With the changing season comes fall foliage. We'll see how folks are using computers to track the best colors.
There's almost always a good show somewhere in your local area.
And can coffee really help predict the weather?
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Good morning and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm Angela Brown. Much of the eastern Carolinas are drenched this morning after a system that never quite developed into that tropical storm dumped up to 18 inches of rain across that region. It certainly felt like a tropical storm with peak wind gusts between 50 to 70 miles per hour. Feet of flooding water are still receding this morning. And then there's this right here along the North Carolina southeastern coast. Water flowing down this street like a river. The water also seeping into homes, leaving residents with a big time cleanup on their hands. A little farther north in Wilmington, some firefighters had to wade through waist-high water or even higher to rescue dogs and also their owners. And this morning, at least one community is under a state of emergency. We have two reports, though, starting with Nate Muldean and Carolina Beach.
Carolina Beach inundated by heavy rain on Monday. Some areas receiving 18 to 20 inches of rain in less than 24 hours. Multiple streets across the area closed throughout the day as rising waters flooded low-lying areas, leaving several cars stranded. Carolina Beach town manager Bruce Oakley says the flooding is the worst the town has seen since Hurricane Fran in 1996.
During Florence, we had 20 to 30 inches of rain over several days. We've had reports of 14 to 20 inches in 12 hours, so it's just more than any stormwater system can handle, but we did our best to keep pumping.
Many residents caught off guard by the floodwaters. Caroline Harden and Sammy Scarborough say the flooding is unprecedented.
So I've been living here for 3 years and I've never witnessed anything this bad. I've been here a little over 5 years. I've seen flooding back here, but nothing like this. Yeah, no.
The flooding also impacting local businesses. Michael McLaughlin owns the Fat Pelican on Lake Park Boulevard. He says the water came so quickly he had little time to prepare.
There's water inside the building. I'm trying to get the stuff that was outside that floated away.
However, like many longtime residents who have seen the most severe storms, McLaughlin remains optimistic.
Just take a garden hose in there. If you've ever been to the Fat Pelican, I'll take a garden hose and I'll wash it out real good. We're ready to go again.
Red flags, dark clouds, and a powerful ocean. Stormy weather made its way to Emerald Isle. But even the rough waves and rain weren't enough to keep this couple out of the water.
We're being careful, we're not going very deep, but we're just enjoying the beach, the waves, the sand. It's windy, really windy, but it still feels great.
Yeah, we do not recommend swimming right now.
Yeah.
When red flags are out, it signals dangerous conditions like high surf and strong currents. The waves were moving quickly, strong enough to move this lifeguard tower. The waves also created erosion, sweeping sea turtle nests into the ocean, unable to be recovered. But even with these conditions, people like Jamie Lawler came out to the beach to soak in this unpredictable ocean.
On days like this, it's just amazing to come down here and look at Mother Nature and see how much power she has in the ocean. And it's just awesome. We love it.
We had no clue there was a storm coming. It's really cool. I mean, I guess we got to have storms every once in a while.
Even when storms aren't as impactful as others, experts say it's important to still prepare by checking road conditions, tying down outdoor furniture, and making an evacuation plan.
This morning, a flood watch and coastal flood advisory are posted for millions of people from Jacksonville, North Carolina, all the way to southern New Jersey. What's left of the storm, though, is expected to bring more rain over the next 2 days as well. Meantime, there's a severe storm risk just east of the Rockies. The greatest risk is the one in that orange zone where just a few thousand people live. The threat is slightly lower in the yellow and green areas from the Canadian border to New Mexico. An earthquake rattled West Texas last night. The 5.1 magnitude quake struck around 20 miles north of Midland, and it was only 5 miles deep, meaning the impact was felt over a wide area. Even though it was just a 5.1, the quake ties for the 5th strongest to ever strike Texas. For more than a week, firefighters in Southern California have battled a massive wildfire in 2 counties. The airport fire has burned more than 120 homes and nearly 24,000 acres of land. It also injured several people and forced entire communities to evacuate as well. Joy Benedict has more.
It's completely gone, all the way up the hill.
Rick Page owns one of the few homes in El Carrizo Village off the Ortega Highway that survived.
The neighborhood as a whole, it's like a bomb went off.
He says when the fire turned Tuesday afternoon, he didn't have a choice but to leave.
Left out of here with just the clothes on my back.
He snuck in the back roads a few days later with a generator, as his neighborhood is still under evacuation orders.
The firefighters made a stand right here in my driveway. They used my hose, they cut that fence out, and they fought that part of the fire right there and kept my house watered down.
His home and a few more behind him survived, where so many others burned.
Some people may rebuild, some people might just leave.
As for the firefight, more than 2,000 firefighters are still on the lines as crews are trying to shore up the west flank before the Santa Ana winds roll in.
Drought conditions are also a big problem in sections of the east, too. It's not only affecting crops, wildlife, and livestock, but firefighters are forced to make critical adjustments because it's simply just so dry. Skylar Sobansky reports from Marshall County, West Virginia.
On Sunday afternoon, a caller reported multiple hay bales on fire. When crews arrived, they encountered a significant challenge, a lack of available water, causing crews to take an alternate route.
They had to go actually down to Fish Creek and actually drive down through the creek to get to an area where there was a substantial amount of water where they could actually draft water from into their trucks and be able to haul it back up to the fire scene, which with the drought conditions right now, it made it really tough.
Hart said responding to fires in areas without hydrants is already challenging, but the drought conditions the valley is experiencing makes it even more challenging.
You do have to go to a water source, for example, a creek, where they actually have to draft from, but right now with the drought conditions, the creek levels in some places they're dried up, or some areas where there's very little water flow. And just trying to find an area where they can actually draft from makes it difficult.
In an event where there is no access to a hydrant or a water source nearby is dried up, Hart said crews will bring in another water source.
They would activate Marshall County Tanker Task Force to draft water from, whether they have to drive a distance to get to a hydrant or even have to draft from the river, or find an area along a creek or stream where they could actually draft from, or even a pond or a lake.
Well, tonight there will be a lunar trifecta, a partial lunar eclipse of a full supermoon. Meteorologist Nathan Schutt shows us what we can expect to see, of course, weather permitting.
Coming up this Tuesday is September's full moon, also known as the harvest moon, getting its name from when farmers will harvest their crop around this time of the year. This moon is a bit special because of a number of things. Number one, this is a super moon. What do we mean by that? Well, it'll appear just a little bit bigger and a little bit brighter because the full moon is occurring at the moon's perigee, or at the point that the moon is closest to the Earth around its orbital path around Earth. The second reason is a partial lunar eclipse, and we're going to be watching for this eclipse beginning around 8:40 p.m. Tuesday evening, and we're going to be watching then early Tuesday night. The maximum extent of this partial eclipse occurring closer to about 10:40 early on Tuesday night. The eclipse then ending after that midnight mark. So make sure to get out early on into Tuesday night to get a view of that full moon and partial lunar eclipse.
Well, over the weekend, a massive flare erupted from the sun. NOAA released this short video showing a composite of the eruption. That flare led to some really great views of the northern lights last night. All of these images were sent to us by viewers. Some of these photos are actually coming from like Washington State and northern Michigan. If you have some pictures, be sure to share them with us. You can find us on all your favorite social media platforms. Just search the National Weather Desk. And coming up from the National Weather Desk is apple season. We'll head to northeast Wisconsin to find out how the weather is impacting this year's crops. And we'll help you better understand orographic lifting.
I'm meteorologist Charlie Lopresti with Look at the Northeast. It's a warm one in the Northeast today with most areas topping out in the 80s. These temps are more representative of mid-July or August rather than mid-September. We have this big blocking high in the Northeast, and that has been the rule over the last several days. Some of this rain from that storm over the Carolinas is going to try to drift north into parts of the Northeast, particularly into southern New England, New Jersey, and New York for Thursday into Friday. At the very least, a good chunk of the Northeast will see some more clouds.
I'm Chief Meteorologist Gerard Jabali. Here's a look at the Mid-Atlantic region. Your Tuesday will start out cloudy, and we'll see a disturbance approaching to bring us some shower chances, especially as we move into Wednesday as well. And we'll see that activity coming out of the south. So scattered showers possible, especially the second half of your Tuesday, but better chances across the entire region going through Wednesday. Temperatures will be a little bit cooler under the clouds as we move through Tuesday, upper 70s to the low 70s as we make our way into Wednesday with the rain around.
I'm meteorologist Charlotte Carl here with your local weather update. High temperatures are going to be in the 80s for the most part, low 90s for some areas in the Florida Peninsula. We also have our anomalously cool Asheville in the upper 60s due to that wedging effect. We do have rain and storms expected mostly over that area. That's where the center of circulation is for this area of low pressure as it pushes up further to the north. Afternoon sea breeze showers should be expected in the Florida Peninsula just because of the afternoon shower dynamic.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
Drone video of this critically endangered North Atlantic right whale was taken off the coast of Delaware. Roughly 350 to 450 of these whales are left in the world. Their numbers plunged near extinction as the 19th century ended due to commercial whaling back then. According to NOAA Fisheries, these are one of the most endangered species of large whales.
Listen to Off the Radar. Find it wherever you get your podcasts.
Well, fall is nearly here in northwest Wisconsin. That means it's time for apple and pumpkin picking. But how did this spring and summer's weather impact the fall crops? Marlo Lundak spoke with local farmers about picking these fall favorites.
Take a look up at the tree here. This is a Cortland tree, and the apples are just beautiful. They're all 3.5-inch apples on that tree.
For some, the waterlogged summer in northeast Wisconsin turned into a blessing.
It did have a lot of rain that, caused some fuss in the beginning, but the apples harvest is tremendous.
I'll tell you, it's really neat to come out and see how many apples we have on our trees this year. I've never seen it like this ever.
And more rain means bigger apples, too.
Look at how big this one is.
I've never had apples the size that I have this year. They are just ginormous.
But the beautiful crop doesn't necessarily mean all is well. Both farmers say because of this year's unseasonably warm temperatures and this week's 80-degree weather, the apples are ready now, about 1 or 2 weeks early.
It makes it a little bit harder on the orchards now because you're gathering together all the different varieties at once rather than spread out by 1 week or 2 weeks. So it makes it a little harder on the orchards.
We don't have a cooler, we don't process them, so we try to sell them as they ripen. So all of a sudden somebody turns on the switch and says, okay, you got 100 trees and now they all need to be picked. That presents a problem because we rely on pick your own people to come in, and there's just so many apples.
But having too many apples, they say, is better than having not enough.
They're literally falling on the ground right now. They're so ripe.
And when it comes to pumpkins, Hofacker says the harvest is strong, but unlike the apples, you may have to wait just a little longer.
Our pumpkins are kind of, with the rain, got pushed off where they would be ready on October 1st. They're going to be ready October 14th. So they're a little bit behind because of the rain. We'll just have 2 weeks of pumpkin picking rather than 4 weeks of pumpkin picking.
Season has been a doozy in some parts of the country because of the weather. Meteorologist Nick Russo explains why that's the case.
Weather has actually made this mosquito season worse, and that all goes back to last winter when we had a lot of rain across much of the eastern U.S., including right here in southern New England, the second wettest winter on record. That allowed for the mosquito larvae from the Culiceta melanura mosquito, which is one that bites birds, to survive better in the swamps throughout the wintertime. Then they hatched in the spring, and our hot summer has increased the mosquito activity, which has allowed those viruses to spread. A triple E infected migratory bird starts out the process that will fly potentially into the area. Robins are one of those birds that can spread the virus. And then you get the mosquito spreading it to more birds, potentially a mosquito that bites both birds and mammals bites one of those infected birds, and then it can infect a human. That's how this cycle happens with these mosquito-borne illnesses. Humans are dead-end hosts. They can't spread the virus after they get infected, but of course, it can make people really sick. And in 30 to 50% of triple E cases, people can die. More mosquito days have been happening because of global warming. The environment is becoming warmer, and that's allowing these mosquitoes to live longer. 19 more days that are suitable for mosquitoes now than 50 years ago. And this risk is not going to end until our first freeze, which typically does not happen in southern New England until late October.
Well, we've talked about several different types of folklore right here on the show. Some of that is based on truth and some are totally made up. But today, let's take a look at a recent Instagram post from meteorologist Joy Bettenhausen testing whether your morning coffee can forecast the weather.
So I grabbed my good friend Kyle for this. We're gonna do a science experiment. Are you ready, Kyle?
Sure, why not?
Okay, we're gonna pour some coffee. Kyle, what cup is this?
This is, it doesn't matter.
That answer doesn't matter. All right, let's get to the experiment. All right, this experiment is really easy to do. You just need coffee and a cup, and essentially we're gonna pour the coffee. If there are bubbles in the middle, that means we're likely under high pressure. If there are bubbles along the edges, we could see low pressure. All right, Kyle, pour the coffee. And we are seeing bubbles along the edges. And you know what? That kind of makes sense because, well, high pressure is on his way out and we are going to be tracking Francine. So would you believe that, Kyle? Coffee could potentially tell what the upcoming weather pattern is.
I mean, I was reading on these internets recently, and is this actual science?
Science, Kyle. Science.
Oh.
But there actually hasn't really been too much research done for this, so we can't take it for face value, but it doesn't hurt to have a fun little experiment.
There you go. The fall equinox will occur this Sunday, and pretty soon the trees will begin changing colors. Emily Gracie sat down with one meteorologist that has created a fall foliage computer model that uses weather data to track and forecast the upcoming season.
Can you tell me some of the really wrong information you see going out about fall colors?
One of my biggest issues with a lot of the information that goes out is the fact that stressed fall color is bad fall color, or an area that has high drought is going to have bad color. In some instances, that is the case, but I've seen many drought-stricken fall foliage forests that have been stunning. So that I always say that even if the trees are stressed going into September, even if you've had drought, with heavy rains all summer long, all those things stress the trees, but don't worry too much because there's almost always a good show somewhere in your local area. It's very rare for the leaves to just crumble up and fall off the tree and there's no good color.
What can we expect this year? Any trends you're seeing for the 2024 season?
Yeah, so across the East Coast, unfortunately, we do have a lot of drought. And going right back to my caveat from a minute ago, that does not mean that the fall color season is going to be a bust across the East Coast. I think even places like West Virginia, where we currently have severe to extreme drought ongoing, they'll still see some decent fall color. But that does generally make fall foliage more erratic. So we may have peak color on one mountain 2 weeks before the next door mountain. It can be rarely kind of all over the place, just depending on that local soil moisture condition. But for everyday people who are just trying to make plans, you can't really go wrong. New England's going to be great. If you have to avoid somewhere, avoid West Virginia, but it would still be good if you go there too. New England will be wonderful. Like I said, Utah and Colorado are shaping up to have a great season. In fact, we already have some colors turning out there, which is really nice. And the Southeast, we'll see. It's been all over the place this summer with heavy rain followed by drought. That leads to stress. How exactly that will manifest itself come late October and November, Not sure yet. We'll have to get a little bit closer and see how things are going.
And to hear more about Explore Fall, check out this week's episode of our podcast, Off the Radar. Evan will talk about how he's using AI to improve this year's fall foliage forecast. You can find Off the Radar anywhere you listen to your podcasts. And time now for a quick break, but first we take flight over sheepdogs hard at work.
Well, a very good Tuesday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Buck-Michael. A lot of 80s and even some 90s for high temperatures today across the Midwest. Watching some of that rain from the Carolina cluster of thunderstorms trying to push its way across the Appalachian Mountains, but it really doesn't move into the Midwest very well. We are watching more showers and storms starting to develop out across the plains for your Wednesday, moving east a little bit by the time we get to Thursday.
Good Tuesday morning to you. Meteorologist Chris Suchat. Look at our forecast today across the region, starting off with 60s and 70s the afternoon. Another day of unseasonably hot temperatures running above average. Here in September, looking at 80s and 90s with the high humidity. Wednesday's forecast, well, we get some patchy clouds from San Angelo and San Antonio, maybe around the Austin area. Otherwise, the afternoon, a lot of sunshine. The rain chances really isolated and spotty, and those temperatures well up into the 90s.
Hi, everybody. I'm Theron Zahn with a look at the forecast for the western United States. An area of low pressure and associated cold front bringing showers to the northern Rockies and parts of the Northwest. The Cascades and Rockies both getting showers and much cooler temperatures, dropping by about 10 degrees. And right along the front there, we expect some windy conditions, especially through areas of Nevada and also Utah. Take a look at these temperatures. 84 for Vegas. That's actually a bit of a cool down for them. 92 for Phoenix, 68 in Reno. That's the scene from out here.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
Here's a question. What is orographic lifting? Meteorologist Teresa Carter explains what it is and how it works.
There are many ways for air in the atmosphere to rise, but the most efficient way is orographic lift. Now, orographic lifting is when wind hits a mountain and is forced to rise over the mountain. As the air rises and cools, clouds form and serve as the source of precipitation. Now, very heavy precipitation typically occurs upwind of a mountain range that is oriented across a prevailing wind from a warm ocean. The opposite side of the mountain ridge is called the leeward side and usually sees much less precipitation. Now, some precipitation falls a short distance downwind of the ridge and is sometimes called the spillover. The reason the leeward side sees much less precipitation is because air is descending on this side of the mountain, and descending air is warmer and drier.
And looking for more great weather content, you can find us on all of your favorite social media platforms. Just search the National Weather Desk. We will be right back. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Angela Brown. Make it a great Tuesday, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow.